My name is Anne, and unlike most of you, I will never grow up, remaining an eternal child. Even now, I'm already 14, but my body is not aware of this at all. My parents gave birth to me very early. They were both under 20, so they were not ready for the role of mom and dad at all. And even after I was born, they couldn't get used to having a baby. But they still had to learn how to manage with an eternally screaming baby since there was no help from any of their family anyway. But we must admit that although my parents took care of me, I did not evoke any special feelings in them. They rather performed their duties automatically than at the call of their hearts. The child has already been born and nothing can be changed, they constantly said to each other. However, I was a girl with special needs, but my parents, because of their youth, did not notice this, believing that they had a funny and petite baby, that's all. But everything changed after the visit to a doctor. At that time, I was 2 years old, but physically I looked like a child of 9 months at the most. And of course, the pediatrician immediately noticed this and began to examine me. The diagnosis was not long in coming. I was diagnosed with a gene mutation due to which I will remain an eternal child forever. The forecasts were patchy, but just then something inside my parents skipped a beat and they completely changed. Now they just began to adore me and devote all of their free time to me. From now on, they cared about me and cherished me, calling me their beloved girl and miracle. My parents probably hoped to save me with their love, not realizing that it was forever. Nevertheless, I am glad that I am adored by my family, and without their support, I would be a completely different person. But now I'm a gagger, a jolly girl, and I can't imagine my life without laughter and jokes. Due to the illness, I began to walk only at the age of 7, but this did little to help my parents because I still like to ride in a stroller or to sit on the lap of one of my parents. One day, my mom left the stroller outside a store and went inside. At that time, I was already 12 years old, so I was only physically a baby. But this didn't prevent me from knowing dozens of my favorite songs by heart, reciting poetry, and shouting in bass if necessary. So while I was lying in the stroller and waiting for my mother, someone came up to me and started to roll me away. I thought it was my mother, so I just kept lying there and dreaming. But soon the stroller stopped and a woman looked in. "What do you want?" I asked sternly, and the unfortunate woman's face twisted and she began to scream like an offended pig. Crazy or something, I thought, and closed the visor of the stroller. A minute later, my mother ran up to me, took me in her arms, and started hugging me and crying. I still didn't understand what was wrong and why my mother was so happy about me. I felt a little uneasy. But it turned out that my mother's behavior was not without reason. While she was in the store, a woman came up to the stroller, looked around, and started to take me away. Then she looked inside and was horrified because what she saw was not what she expected, me. Then she was detained by the police, and it turned out that she wanted to kidnap a baby, but something went wrong. From the experience, the poor lady began to go crazy because the stress experienced hit hard on her psyche. They say that now she is completely turned gray and is still being treated in a special medical institution and constantly repeats the words, "little monster." Oh, it's about me, if anything, but I have my own opinion on this. You should not do bad deeds and try to kidnap other people's children. Karma overtook her. All is fair. In general, I shock almost all strangers, but usually people quickly come to their senses. I am also not deprived of a sense of humor, so I like to play pranks on others. But sometimes this leads to unpredictable consequences, and since I go to a regular school, I do most of my pranks there. This year, we have a new history teacher. Well, my classmates and I were not at a loss. Before the start of our first lesson, none of the classmates was in a hurry to enter the class, and here's why. In the history class, we have little ventilation, no more than 30 centimeters in diameter, and almost nothing and no one will fit in there, well, except me. This is what we decided to use. My classmates helped me get in and then left, and soon the new teacher came in and started preparing for the lesson. Half a minute later, I poked my head out of the vent and plaintively asked for help. The shocked historian was even speechless and then asked how I got up there and how it was even possible. He even pinched himself and gave himself a couple of slaps. I told him that this is not a simple school and here they conduct experiments on children, turning them into snakes with human heads. The poor teacher opened his mouth in surprise and then backed away. He began making strange movements with his hands in my direction and said, "Disappear! Disappear!" And then something unexpected happened and he took a chair in his hands. Well, that joke would have been my last one if my classmates had appeared in the classroom a second later, because the historian was serious and was very scared of the snake with a human head. When he was stopped and I was pulled out of the vent, he breathed a sigh of relief and said that it was a terrible prank and now he would definitely not sleep for a week. To say that is one thing, but in fact, it turned out to be completely different. It turned out he couldn't get over it and didn't show up to our school again. His first day of work was his last one. Dang it, I didn't mean to. After that incident, the principal said that if I repeated the trick even once, I would leave the walls of his school forever. After all, it was my fault that a third teacher left there. Actually, he's right. There were 2 other particularly vulnerable teachers before the historian, but the rest of the teachers just adore me. As you have already understood, I give the impression of an absolutely happy person with a sense of humor and self-irony, but this is a kind of self-defense because I have a whole bunch of fears and resentments that I hide somewhere in the depths of my soul. In fact, I am afraid for my fragile health. I'm so scared that I can cry all night from it. The fact is that my organs are cramped in my tiny body, and this harms my body. Unfortunately, the situation is getting worse every day, and I live in incessant pain. I'm afraid of falling. I'm afraid of dying. I'm afraid of hurting my parents, and I'm even afraid to talk about my fears, so only I know about them. It's a circle of despair. And behind the mask of a positive and funny girl, there is an insult to life on a universal scale. Why are some people destined to be completely healthy while others have to fight every day for their right to exist? Where is the justice here? Yes, you can talk about karma, DNA breakdown, jokes of nature, and so on, but it doesn't make it easier for me. I have not done anything bad to anyone to suffer like this. Also, there is a resentment against my parents inside of me. It is difficult for me to explain for what exactly I am offended, but there is a destructive feeling, and this is a fact. Maybe I'm jealous of their physical health. Maybe I blame them for being born this way. It can be anything, but no one knows about it except me. I just see how my parents are trying for me and doing everything to make me happy, and my grievances are my own business. Why should I upset my closest people with this? They are already going through all the sorrows with me, and they are also not to blame for why we have such a fate. Do you have a sense of humor? Do you like funny people who love jokes and gags? You can write your answers at the bottom right below this video. Don't forget to click on the thumbs up button and also check if you are subscribed to the channel to be the first one to watch the release of new stories.